Right. Come on. Ah, here we go. Oh gosh. Okay, I changed my car because that one before wasn't suitable for this job. It's 7:20 in the morning. I'm not too used to get up early in the morning. So if you watched my TRS-80 Model 3 restoration series, you may have noticed that in the first video I mentioned that before the pandemic I found a Commodore Pet in Rome, and due to the pandemic I wasn't able to pick it up. And from yesterday you can travel from a city to another, and so today is the day I'm going to pick my Commodore Pet. That's quite magic for me, and I think this will require sunglasses. Rome is about an hour's drive for me, and you already know Rome. There is nothing to talk about. But I'm from Terni. You know, Terni is famous for at least 3 things in the world: Marmore Waterfall, the giant steel factory, the ThyssenKrupp. What else? We produced the rifle that killed JFK. I don't know if that is a good thing or not. We are going to pick my Commodore Pet 3032 today. Maybe, but just maybe, a deck server. But just maybe. I don't know if I want to buy things like that. We have here a Commodore Pet model 3032, and as you can see here it's written 4032, but we will take a look at it. Now this thing is working, so I don't need to repair it, but it is in really rough shape. I mean, maybe in camera it's not evident, but corners are a little smudged. There is a lot of dirt, really a lot of dirt. Inside there is so many dust. The keys are slightly yellowed, but I won't do retro bright because I did retro bright on a Commodore 64 keyboard, and these Petsky characters went away, so I don't want to risk ruin the keyboard of this computer. Absolutely. So I'm going to be very careful while cleaning and working on this thing. Now, as many of you may already know, this computer is entirely metal, totally metal, so it's very heavy, and you can open it like a truck. You can lift the cover up, there are no screws, and then there is a bar that holds the cover up while working on the motherboard. Yes, it's such a neat design. Inside is dusty, but not so much. There is a really scary and terrifying transformer here. I don't want to touch this thing too much. I mean, it's working, so probably I'm going to take this thing off to clean the inside, and then I'm going to remount it, and that's it. This computer came out in 1980. The original Commodore Pet, the Commodore Pet 2001, came out in 1977, so this is 3 years later. And the reason why I'm looking for a date code is the model badge on that. As you have noticed, 4032 is the model for this computer, and it's not true. So I'm trying to spot what's the difference and why it has a different number. Back in the days, you can actually upgrade this 3032 to a 4032. So this number here, you have to split into parts, and 40 indicates the column on the screen and 32 indicates the kilobyte of RAM. I have never seen a badge that is glued onto the old badge. I don't know what's going on under this thing. I don't know if you can see that. Those are two different layers. I am looking for some sort of upgrade on the motherboard because, you know, these things were used a lot. It's possible that the motherboard broke and they took this computer to the Commodore service and they replaced the motherboard with a 4032 and upgrade the badge. I really don't know. But the 4032 is later than 1980, I think, if I remember correctly. So I'm looking for date codes that are a little bit off or a little bit too late compared to 1980. 1979, that's so old. 79. Yeah, the CPU is from 79. This is from 1980, but all the computer is from 1979. I have to study this thing a little bit. But before that, we need to clean that. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, it's looking better already. I can spot a lot of dust inside the keyboard, and in order to clean those angles here, I need to remove the keyboard. Okay, I purchased some magic eraser. I'm going to start to erase. You see, there is this yellow part here. This is white and this is yellow. I mean, it's pretty yellow. And that's not a problem of sun, because this is painted metal. So it's not sun. I mean, probably I'm going to leave it yellow, but yeah, scrubbing too much is going to take off the paint. So I'm stuck on that. I was looking around the motherboard in order to clean that, and I limited myself to brush it with a non-anti-static brush, sue me, but I found some things that I don't like. First, the seller told me that he changed the capacitors after I purchased the Pet, so that was a little bit disappointing. Fortunately, he didn't change the largest one, that and that, but only those here, and he changed even that over here and all these small capacitor. In fact, you can see the rework done on the other part of the board. I mean, it's a fairly good work, more or less, but I would prefer to do it myself. One thing that I don't like at all is what is currently happening right here. Let me show you. There is no pad, alright? And on this order and that order you can see a lot of rework, and this section here has to do with the power supply of this thing, and that is a diode, a pretty big one. So I don't know if that got changed at some point. It seems different from the others, but whoever changed that ripped off the pad, and it's a terrible work to do. No, that shouldn't be done. No. I got this with my Commodore Pet. We are going to open it and service. The seller didn't test it, so I don't know if that is working or not. I already opened the lid, and this is very dusty. Okay, as you can see, there is a little bit of dust right here, but on the top part it is immaculate, almost new. Let's begin with the toughest one. So, why there is a Commodore 64 1541 disk drive near a computer, a PC? Well, that's because we are going to make Floppy for my Commodore Pet using this setup. Let me show you more closely. That's the setup. I'm using a 1541X cable, so without diodes, without nothing. You can see that is the cable. It attached directly to the printer port and the monochromatic video card, and then we have power for the disk drive, and that is. So in order to use a Commodore disk drive to make Commodore disks, you need to know how Commodore disks works and what type of disk you can do with that, and you need to use a program called Star Commander, which resembles Norton Commander. It's not the same thing, so I'm going to show you the process so it's more clear. The first thing we need to do is to turn on that, and then turn on the PC. As you can see, the drive LED is light up. I'm booting from XT2IDE Universal BIOS. We enter Pet, and we can launch SC083. So The reason I can use that is my disk drive for Commodore Pet is a 4040, and the 4040 disk drive is compatible into some extent with the Commodore 64 disk. I don't know if you can read but not write or things like that. You need to insert that in here. Then you can select the image you want to write. That, then go to Option Command and copy disk. You can see copy space Invaders 1.dit64 8. 8 is this drive here, as in all Commodore things. 8 is the floppy drive. So we need to format the destination disks, because those are, I was using that on my Olivetti M20, so it's totally different. So we are going to select that, and then that's it. We can go to copy, and then we can wait a long amount of time in order to get our disk done. You can hear the head formatting the disk. So now it's copying the disk. This is going to take at least 20 minutes to do a floppy disk. Okay, now I turn on the power and we can... That's alright. Alright. Now I can insert that into the floppy drive, and I can load the directory. So we can list the directory. Oops. That's not good. I want to try Ultra Invaders. Okay, that's working. Yep. Play around. Alright. How I can... Oh, okay, so... No! No, dang it. You need to give me some time or not. Ouch! Game over. Anyway, I need to fix the keyboard and the floppy disk drive issues, but you know, that's minor thing, I can do that. Sorry for the poor video quality here, but this is a live recording from, you know, the Purple website. I don't know how to use it, so I did not save the live, but fortunately OBS saved the recording. So, while playing Space Invaders, I noticed that the V key was not working. This has to do with how the Commodore Pet keys works. There is a plunger on top of that sits the keycap, and at the end there is a carbon pad, which press against to separate contact on the PCB underneath, making contact by shorting those. Now, by the time passing, dirt can deposit between the carbon pad and the contacts, or the carbon pad can worn out. In order to restore connectivity, there are three ways. One, you can clean the carbon pad hoping that it's just dirty. Two, you can spread some graphite on the pad because, graphite is conductive. Or three, you can buy a conductive paint and redo all the carbon pads. The last one will be the best solution, but since I have only few non-working keys, I'm feeling positive that a good cleaning and occasionally a pencil will work for me. By the way, someone before me opened and worked on this keyboard. Look at these bad solder joints on the keyboard connector. This can't be made by Commodore, it is impossible. But it flashes some light on the difficult life this computer had. I measured in resistance mode across our working key and I found that it is around 70 or 80 ohms, but when I measure the V key I get around 1000 ohms. First I tried to clean it with Glassex and it helped out not so much, then I used isopropyl alcohol and that did the trick. The V key is working. Now, when I tested the keyboard, I noticed that two keys were not making contact at all, the at and the left arrow. When I tested the resistance, I get around 1 kilo ohm on the at. It's not surprised that it's not working. So I decided to clean it first and then to use the pencil to spread the graphite, and surprisingly it worked. The resistance was still around 100 ohms, but it is at least 10 times better. No, really, it is exactly 10 times better. Anyway, I did the same thing on the left arrow key and surprise surprise, it worked! I managed to repair a keyboard using alcohol and a pencil. And we are getting into the only scripted part of this video. And yes, the thing is still on the computer rack because this thing is heavy and I don't want to move it across my room. Thanks for choosing me as your entertainment on YouTube. Now, that is my fully functional Commodore Pet 2001 or 4032 as it is upgraded. And I can't be more happy with that. But why? Listen me very carefully, because I'm going to talk about a thing that every other YouTuber with a Commodore Pet said. The fact is, this machine is boring. It's boring as f***. Now, do not misunderstanding me, it's a cool machine. It's one of the first large-scale successful available computer for the home users. It is the first computer for Mom Commodore, and it is very cool to look at. This is probably the main reason why I bought it. But it is in fact boring. Even if it is a widespread and very famous computer, due to its hardware limitations, you can do very little with that today. I'm talking about games. There is a good number of games for the Commodore Pet, but they are very basics and primitives compared, for example, to the games for the Commodore VIC-20, which are basics and primitives too. So this leads me to the question, should you buy a Commodore Pet as a vintage computer to begin with? And the answer is hell yeah, no! There are plenty of other computers, which are decidedly more useful and satisfying than the Pet. Not to talk about the price, this can easily go for around $1,000 on eBay without the floppy drive unit. I paid for my setup around 500 euros, which is really over what I can afford for a computer. Why did I do it? Anyway, if you didn't notice it, I'm not an expert whatsoever on computer things. I started collecting a repair around 3 or 4 years ago, and I started with a Commodore 64. That is a really good machine with an infinite amount of games and software, with new games developed every year and a fascinating and helpful community. So don't waste your money, buy something useful and enjoyable. Go out, make friends, get a degree, live your life as best as you can, and don't waste your time filling your home with this shit over here. I'm so lonely. Also, if you enjoyed this kind of video, more ironic and filled with memes sensations, you can subscribe. Or not, I don't give a shit.